Hi, this is Bill. I'm a salty old Marine. I want to talk about VA disability claims and organization and the importance of being organized when you're getting ready to make a VA disability claim and as you move through the disability process. So let's talk about that. As we know, when you make a VA disability claim, you have to provide certain documentation to the VA if you intend to prove your claim. So you cannot just simply say, I have tinnitus. You can, I guess, but in order to have a winning claim, you need to provide something in the order of proof, like medical proof. And as we've talked about before, a typical successful VA claim consists of an in-service event, a current diagnosis, and a link between the two, often known as a nexus or a medical opinion, right? With those three things, you can win your claim. The more information you provide that's important and relevant, the better for you. However, that doesn't mean you should just throw the kitchen sink at the VA when you file your disability claim. And I've actually talked to veterans who said things like, I uploaded my treatment record and told them to find out what's wrong with me and give me a check. Yeah, that doesn't work. They are not going to paw through your records and find those things out. That's on you, my friend. However, let's talk about organization. Here's how I do it. First of all, I want to make sure, once I decide that I'm going to file a claim, or potentially file a claim, that I have the information I need. So, in-service event. Do I have medical records from the time that I was in service that would support my in-service event? If yes, then that information goes into a file on my computer. In that file as well would be things that support that. For example, if I don't have the in-service event, maybe I didn't go to see sick bay when I was injured while I was in the service, but I told my friends, and my friends were aware of it at the time. If I can get a buddy letter from one of them, that goes into the folder, right? So that tends to establish the in-service event. So anything I can do, that would include a personal statement. So there's a form on the VA's website for making a personal statement. You fill that out, you explain how this thing happened to you while you were in service, what were the conditions, what were the times, what were the dates, all those things, right? And that goes into the folder. Now, current diagnosis. I need my medical records for my current diagnosis. I need a doctor's note saying what it is I've been diagnosed with, right? I can't just say I have thus and so. A doctor has to say I have thus and so. That's a current diagnosis. If I'm being treated, I want to provide the treatment information. So I'm getting a CPAP for my sleep apnea, right? That's a prescription. I'm taking medication for my high blood pressure, for my cholesterol. I'm taking medication for my heart disease, for my diabetes. Whatever pertains to that particular claim, that's a medical record, boom, that goes in. Personal logs, things like every day I feel heartburn. Maybe I'm filing a GERD claim. I'm not, but maybe I was, right? So every day I have heartburn, and whenever I experience heartburn, I got a little app and I'm making a note of it. If you're having migraines, you might use Migraine Buddy or some similar kind of application. Every time you have a migraine, you're putting that in there, right? When it comes time to do the claim, you make sure you download all those log entries, and boom, those go into the file as well. All of that information will then be uploaded when you make your claim. If you go out and get a DBQ, a disability benefits questionnaire from your doctor, if you get a nexus letter from your doctor, or if you purchase one from a independent medical examiner who can write that for you by doing a records review, or in some cases by meeting with you, right, an in-person kind of examination. But in any case, if you get a nexus letter by one way or another, that goes into the folder. These are the things that you upload to the VA portal with your claim. Now, it's very important that you provide the VA with everything they need to make a decision. That will speed things along and will tend to weigh heavily in your favor. Don't throw everything you have at them. What I mean to say is, if you're filing for tinnitus, there is no reason for you to be uploading your migraine log. Well, unless you're claiming migraines, but assuming you're you're claiming tinnitus. There's no reason for you to be uploading your GERD log, right, every time you have acid reflux because you're filing for tinnitus. It doesn't make sense. The more information you give the VA that isn't necessary, the harder it's going to be for them to find in your favor. They've got to paw through all that documentation. Everything you upload, they have to look at, and more than once. So tailor what you're providing in your claim. And that's why it's important to be organized, so you know exactly what you're providing. Now, let's talk about what happens after you file your claim. You've still got that information, right? That's important because at some point you may be scheduled for a compensation and pension exam, a CNP exam. That CNP examiner will be reading the documentation you uploaded. You like that? I can do that. Boop. Okay. That CNP examiner is going to be reading the documentation that you uploaded, and by that time, months may have gone by, you may have forgotten what it was you uploaded. That does happen. And by the way, once you've uploaded it, you can't download it again, right? It's a one-way portal. It boop, goes in, doesn't come back out. You can't even delete it once you've uploaded it. Bummer, right? But you kept it all in one place, right? You kept it in a special directory on your computer, perhaps, or in a folder if you're doing everything on paper, whatever, right? But it's all there. Everything you gave to the VA, you have. And when you go to your CNP exam, you've still got it. And that's your notes. That's what you look at. That's what you're interested in. Remember, we're building a claim for a particular disability. Supposedly, you gave the VA every bit of the information they need to make a decision. But you're still going to be asked about it. So make sure that what you answer in that exam is what you submitted. And how do you know that? Don't rely on your memory. Have that information. If you're organized and you keep all that information in the same place, you can refer to it when you go to your CNP exam. Now, further, let's say the CNP exam goes not in your favor. Let's say that your claim is denied and you decide that they made a mistake. So you appeal it. Maybe you file a higher level review. Maybe you file for a supplemental. Maybe any kinds of thing you might actually appeal on, right? Again, as this goes up the chain and you get that higher level review, or you meet with the board, or whatever it is that happens, right? The VA has all that information that you submitted. You need to have all the information that you submitted too. So again, organization. So when you do a higher level review, as an example, you're not allowed to submit new information. All you can talk about in your high level review is how the information that was already submitted was misinterpreted. You got 50%. You thought you deserved 70%. And by the way, I currently have a PTSD claim that's service-connected for 50%, and I'm trying to get to 70% because I believe they misinterpreted the evidence that I provided, which I know they had to look at. They read. And I know that the 38 CFR, my symptoms match 70% much more closely than they do 50% in the evidence I submitted. I can't give them anything new. I can't say, oh, I forgot to tell you. That's for a different type of appeal. For a high-level review, I can only use the information I've already submitted. But I know what I've already submitted because I kept it all in one place. Again, organization is the key. So here's the takeaway here. When you're preparing to submit a disability claim and you begin to gather your evidence, be organized. If you're keeping it on paper, in a manila folder, in a shopping bag, I don't care. If you're keeping it online in a special directory, good. Hope you're keeping backups, by the way. Computers break, because I'm a computer guy, so I know. Yeah, they break. But keep the information yourself all in the same spot so that you know exactly what you are submitting. First, so that you can be sure you're submitting everything that is necessary and nothing that is not necessary. Second, so that when you get called for a CNP exam, you can talk about precisely what it is that they're seeing in front of them. You submitted it, they're looking at it, now you've got to talk about it, but you know exactly what it was. Memory is a fickle thing. You'll forget what you said, right? I put it in my personal statement. What was in my personal statement? I don't remember. Well, if you got a copy of it, you do, right? And you can take that with you as a note. You can just print it out, bring it in, read right from it. There's nothing saying you can't do that. And then third, in case you have to appeal for any reason at all, you really need to know what it is you've already said. You don't want to contradict your own words. Does that make sense? I hope so. I'm Bill. I am the salty old Marine. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, leave a comment. I love the comments. And as always, have a great day.